Welcome to the Weather Insights Winter Weather Briefing. I'm meteorologist Scott Pitney with meteorologist Jeff Lindner. It is Wednesday, January 21st, and since our briefing yesterday, we've seen some unfavorable, what I'd call unfavorable trends, Jeff, in that we're seeing the duration of this storm lasting longer. We're seeing the temperatures um, dropping, and we're seeing a little bit more ice accumulation in certain areas. And for that reason, we now have a winter storm watch in effect. You can see it there, which does include Harris County and Houston Metro. This is starting Saturday afternoon through Sunday. It does not include the coastal counties right now. And then you can see it's for the majority of the rest of the state of Texas. Jeff, what can you tell us today about what is happening with this winter storm?
Well, it's an evolving situation, and one of the things that we always talk about is uncertainty, and where's the freeze line going to be? Is the moisture going to overlap with the freezing temperatures? And we still have some questions there, but we do have enough confidence at this point that it does look like we will see some level of ice down into the 59 corridor in our area. So that is why that winter storm watch has been issued. That's from Saturday morning through Sunday afternoon. I think for Harris County in the metro area, you're probably looking more towards Saturday afternoon before you start to see impacts. I did want to mention just the geographical footprint of this storm. Everything you see here in this dark blue is a winter storm watch. So
Wow.
extending from West Texas all the way over towards the Carolinas. And this is going to start much earlier if you're up in Oklahoma, North Texas, Northwest Texas. This is going to get going on Friday evening, Friday afternoon, late afternoon into the Friday evening, and then spreading south towards the I-10 corridor as you get into Saturday and Saturday night. And there could be some additions to this watch. We're still kind of the coastal counties are maybe a little bit warm still. We're also a little bit further out. So if we did get some ice accumulation in the coastal counties, it'd probably be more towards Sunday morning. So this is Wednesday, we're really pushing that limit on typically your watch gets issued 48 hours out. So we're pretty far out in time. So there is time to add some of these coastal counties or some of these other counties here in the coastal bend to this if need be. First, I'm going to go through the temperatures, then we'll talk about the precipitation. And so these are the temperatures. We do expect the big front to come through tomorrow afternoon and evening, probably for the metro area sometime after 6 o'clock, but before 10 o'clock. And this initial surge is not going to be the real cold air. So we're going to drop from the 60s and 70s on Friday evening down into the 40s Friday night and into the 30s by Saturday morning. But then we're going to get a second push of cold air. And this is very typical of Arctic air masses. They kind of come in waves. A secondary push on Saturday, and that's going to drive that freezing line on down into further down to the south towards the 59 and 10 corridors, and eventually all the way down to the coast by later on Saturday evening. And then we kind of go into the freezer here overnight Saturday into Sunday morning. So this is forecast low temperatures. This is not wind chills. This is low temperatures forecasted for Sunday morning, and you can see even freezing all the way down on the coast, mid 20s up into the metro, and then the outlying areas, especially down on the west side. Arctic air really favors that southward push on the west side of kind of Houston. We could see low temperatures getting down towards 20, single digits out here towards areas northwest of the hill country, and
Wow.
even low to mid teens here in the I-35 corridor from Austin up towards Waco. So this is a very cold area, and we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
Sunday. And Sunday is going to be the first morning of hard freezes. And we're going to go through several mornings of this. The other aspect to look at is we probably will not get above freezing during the day on Sunday. So now not only do you have really cold overnight temperatures, there is a long duration potential here for us to stay at or below freezing anywhere, in the metro area from 40 to 50 hours. You go up north towards College Station, Huntsville, we could be talking 60 to 70 hours below freezing. You go further north of that, then you could be talking over 80 hours below freezing. And so that is when we start to get concerned about our infrastructure, our pipes, and our plumbing and our gaskets and sprinkler systems and all that stuff. When we get this cold for a long period of time, that's when we can start to have issues. So it's really important for this upcoming freeze event that you have those preparations in place. And then Monday morning, a little bit colder even everywhere. We're talking low to mid-teens now north of Highway 105. So, Huntsville 15, potentially 13 degrees at College Station. The upper teens kind of wrapping around the city here on the west side, 18 potentially in Katy, 22 downtown, and then lower 20s down on the coast. So this is cold for us. You're getting down there with these numbers. This is definitely impactful to infrastructure. You have to do your preparations for this type of cold to mitigate as much damage as you can when it comes to pipes and stuff like that. And then we look at Tuesday mornings, not only Monday morning, but also Tuesday morning. And again, another hard freeze here for much of the area, hard freeze criteria 24 below. And it looks like we will satisfy that again on Tuesday morning, especially off to the north and the west. And so you can see there, falling into the teens again, maybe even teens back into Harris County, maybe around 25 in the downtown area. We'll just have to see. And during this whole period of time, especially Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we're going to have a north wind at 15 to 20 miles an hour. That is going to drive those wind chills down into the single digits. It's very, very rare for us to see single digits. We've even talking negative wind chill factors up around the College Station area and certainly north and west of that. But
Mm.
it's getting really rare for us. This is dangerously cold conditions for anybody to be out in for an extended period of time. And so, again, like I say, make those preparations. We have until Friday afternoon to get those preparations done. I'll talk a little bit here in a minute about the pre-treatment, the roadway systems, and what the transportation companies and agencies are planning to do. All right, so let's talk about the freezing rain. This is really a freezing rain setup. I keep hearing, is it going to snow? It's not going to snow. It's not going to snow down here in Southeast Texas. You might get a little snow up toward the Red River, maybe North Texas, but the air is just too shallow here. And what I mean by that is this cold air coming in. You think of it like water on a flat table. It kind of oozes in, and above that cold air, it's actually pretty warm. I was looking at some of the soundings earlier for Sunday around noon. It's actually 40, 42 degrees above the surface
Wow.
while we're sitting down here maybe in the upper 20s. And so this is
Mm.
a very classic freezing rain setup. It's going to fall as liquid water and it's going to fall into those really cold temperatures and it's going to freeze into a layer of ice on any exposed surfaces. And so this map here, what we call the 75th percentile, this includes the whole event. This is probably the most likely scenario right now and the ice accumulations that we could see. So you can kind of see along that 59 corridor, which matches up pretty closely with that winter storm watch outline. We do expect some ice accumulations. And again, it only takes 1/100th of an inch of ice, paper thin layer of ice on bridges and overpasses to cause really big problems. And I definitely think we're going to get that down along that 59 corridor. It wouldn't surprise me if this comes down a little bit further to the south. And then you start getting into this 10th of an inch area a little bit further to the north and west. That's certainly more of a travel concern and issue there. It's not until you start to get to those quarter-inch thresholds that you really have to start worrying about the power and the tree limbs. And I'm going to pan out a little bit, zoom out a little bit, and so you can see we are going to hit those thresholds off to our north. And this is, again, a likely scenario here of damaging destructive, crippling ice storm from Midland, Odessa, across central North Texas, and then over into Louisiana, and even further east than that. And so, if you just look at the real estate that this ice is going to cover, and think about all the trees, especially in East Texas, the pine trees and the live oak trees that still have the leaves and all that on them, that is a lot of surface area for this ice, and it is going to be a destructive event, and loss of power is going to be really widespread in this event in these red and purple areas. This is going to be truly devastating, and some of this power could be out for days, if not weeks. I mean, you're talking about bringing down wires, poles, trees. This is very significant that the weight of this ice. And then I wanted to take you and look at the reasonable worst case scenario. So that's kind of the 90th percentile that we look at for the freezing rain here. Could this happen? Yes. Will it happen? We'll see. But this is kind of the worst case scenario. This would be a 10th of an inch of ice down through much of the metro, down southwest 59 to Victoria. And then off to the north, we're starting to get those quarter or third of an inch. This would be very concerning. So if you kind of drew a line around 105 north of that, This is where we could, if this panned out, we could see some of those power outages with that ice on the tree limbs and the power lines. I'll zoom out like you can so you can see the whole state again. And again, this is kind of the reasonable worst case scenario. And again, just a really bad looking ice event here for central, northeast, east Texas on eastward. And like I said, just the ground that this is going to cover is going to be very significant. So what are we doing? There's been a lot of coordination going on into all this. I think right now we had to wait for the rain to get through here today, and the transportation agencies are going to start the anti-ice pre-treatments tomorrow locally in our area. So they'll probably end up doing the majority of the system. The question kind of comes in on Friday and Friday evening, especially ahead of the front and along the front. Do we get enough rain to kind of work in on that anti-ice treatment on some of that pavement and maybe make it a little bit less effective? We'll just have to see. It's the storm we're being dealt. You can't really apply it when it's raining. It's not going to work. You have to apply it to a dry pavement, and so we'll see. I do think right now the bridges and the overpass, the connector ramps, all those typical, the flyovers, all those typical high bridges that we've dealt with, it seems like every year for the past couple of years, we're probably going to deal with this event. Surface streets we'll have to see. Initially, the ground's going to be warm, so it's going to take some time to cool down the surface streets to get ice accumulation. We'll see if that happens. You start talking about temperatures down in the mid 20s, it really doesn't matter how warm the ground is under it. It's going to overcome that factor, but you typically got to get down around 25, 26, 27 degrees to start to get that real good accumulation on the surface streets. And just a little bit about how this is maybe playing out Saturday, Sunday. We might get some precipitation Saturday. We may get a little bit of a lull or break Saturday evening. It's kind of questionable. And then we may have some of our heaviest precipitation come in Saturday night and Sunday morning. And unfortunately, that would overlap with some of the colder conditions. So we could even potentially see some moderate freezing rain at times as we get into Sunday morning and even into midday. And I'll bookend both of those periods with these Arctic air masses love to squeeze out this moisture, and so it's nothing to get a little bit of that light drizzle and mist, even with the precipitation ending Sunday evening, and also Saturday evening. We could get some of that, and like I said, it takes a very, very small amount on those elevated surfaces to create issues, and so a lot of challenges coming here, not only in Southeast Texas, but statewide here over the next couple of days. I've had a lot of questions about the power. ERCOT is saying that they have the supply to meet the demand this weekend, and that is a statement from ERCOT. And I've been looking at the graphs today, and it does appear that there will be enough supply to meet the demand. What we're probably much more concerned about, unlike February of 21, is the distribution system, especially kind of north of our area, taking a big hit to the damage. So that's the wires and the poles that actually bring the power to the homes. If those get a lot of ice on them, it can result in a lot of damage. So just to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about with some of this ice, between one span of wire, so from one power pole to the next power pole on one wire, you can get about 500 pounds of ice from a quarter inch or so of freezing rain.
Wow.
And so you can start seeing now
Mhm.
how this can go bad really quick as you add it up. And that's a quarter to a third of an inch or so. You start talking a half inch or three-quarters of an inch, and it is just absolutely a devastating event
And then, Jeff,
for
you,
the.
you add in wind to that component, it exasperates it because we're going to have gusty winds behind the front as well.
Yeah, we are going to have north winds at 15 to 20 pretty much through the whole duration.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. That will stress those trees and power lines even more. So it may not even take as much as that quarter of an inch to start causing some outages. But the best thing is to be prepared. If you don't lose power, great. And if you do lose power, you're prepared for that. And again, I think this is really an important message, especially north of us, but even down here we could see a few isolated outages here or there. Even the tree limbs sagging a little bit with the weight of the ice and touching the power line could, result in some outages.
Yeah. We'll likely have another update tomorrow. We get into the shorter range, high resolution models, which will give us even more information. And I know a lot of comparisons are being made. Jeff, you mentioned 21. And I think, like with hurricanes, we can't get caught up in comparing this event too much to the other event in terms of, okay, I didn't lose my power in 21, so I should be fine. It doesn't work like that at all. Every event is unique. So the key message is, as Jeff has mentioned, prepare. And what's a little bit different, I guess, about this extreme weather event, unlike hurricanes, a lot of times when we get hurricanes along the coast, people will go stay with their relative or their friend in Dallas, San Antonio, or wherever. This is not that situation. This is a situation you need to hunker down. You do not need to be out on the roads. And Jeff, I'm thinking just kind of in general terms. I know we're still working on timing and things like that, but I would say, have your preparations done by Friday, as you've mentioned. But as far as staying off the road, I'm thinking anywhere from, of course, it's different. The further north you go, that timeline changes. But Houston Metro, Southeast Texas, in general terms, I'd say stay off the road from Saturday to maybe even through Tuesday. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Saturday's kind of the battle day. It
Yeah.
could be Saturday morning for areas north and west, College Station, Huntsville, Conroe, and then more midday, afternoon, evening towards the city and further south. We'll just have to see. That's one of the really uncertain parts of this. And then I think Sunday's a no-go. I think everybody's wherever you're at Saturday night is where you're going to be Sunday, Sunday night, probably into Monday. I don't think we recover a whole lot on Monday. If we can get a little bit of sun to work on some of this ice, it'll help. But we're going to refreeze everything we melt again Monday night into Tuesday morning. And so there's going to be some challenges here on the transportation side of things for a couple days. And we've seen that, we've dealt with this enough in the past few years to know that you can clear most of the freeway and you can have one location where you got a ramp or a connector and it's not getting sun, it's shaded, and it's just hard to break that ice up and you can get into incidents, accidents and stuff like that. And so that refreezing, remelting black ice is all going to be an issue for us as we get into Monday, Tuesday of next week, even though the precipitation stops on Sunday.
And we talk about the four P's a lot, especially people, and not just yourself and your family. Obviously, that's priority number one, but also take care of the elderly too. In fact, I talked to a gentleman yesterday, a friend of mine. He's in his mid 80s, and he didn't have a clue that this storm was coming. And he thanked me for letting him know, and he's going to make his preparations now. So you have neighbors, elderly people that they need help with stuff like this. So spread the word. We've given you the information, so you can help us out by spreading the word and passing the message along. Jeff, thank you very much. We'll touch base again likely tomorrow. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll be in touch. Have a good one.